CBSE Board History, Chapter 8, Part 10, audio by Renee Matthew. In the previous audio, we saw how there was the difference between the hat wearers and the turban wearers. There was a kind of visual depiction of a difference between both. And now let us take a look into a special type of turban from a special part of the country, and that is Mysore. The turban on the head. First, look at a picture which is given on the screen. You can see two pictures on the screen. One is in green color and the other one is in off-white color, and both has got golden lace. And that is the speciality of this picture. The Mysore turban is very famous for its design and also the golden lace which is there on the turban. The Mysore turban called peta was edged with golden lace and adopted as part of the darbar dress. Darbar means when people are a part of the court, or when people are working for the king and the administrative part, the authority, they were supposed to wear an attire which is pleasing and officially accepted. So it became a part of the courtroom dress, and that is why it was known as the darbar dress in the mid-19th century. By the end of the 19th century, a wide variety of officials, so people belonging to the higher levels of the society, like the higher officials, teachers, artists, all these people started adopting the wearing of turban, sometimes with the Western suit. So remember that people were against mixing up both Western and Indian dress. Do you remember the previous audio? Some people reacted and just ridiculed mixing up both Western and Indian dress. But here we have people wearing Western suit along with the turban, and it was a sign of belonging to the princely state, that is belonging to Mysore. And Mysore is very famous for the sweets, the art, the architecture, the clothing material. You must have heard of the Mysore silk. So these things are very particular to this particular place in India. So from then itself, people were fascinated by this Mysore turban. Today, the Mysore turban is used largely on ceremonial occasions and to honor visiting dignitaries. So it is an official dress of the country where people, when they go to meet higher authorities from other parts of the globe, they wear this particular turban, which has become a part of the national attire, and they go in a very charming princely style to meet people of higher dignitaries. So take a look at both the pictures and keep this point in mind, that it was a part of the darbar dress. It was very famous in the 19th century, and the silk that is used is different. And one more point is that the special name was peta, and also they mixed it up with Western suit, and it really looked elegant when it was mixed that way. And the people who used it were the officials, teachers, artists, and of course the courtroom people. All right? Okay. Defiance of shoe respect. This is a very interesting episode. Defiance means refusal, or it can be detesting, strong, adamant refusal to do something. In 1862, something very important happened. There was a famous case of defiance of the shoe respect rule in a Surat courtroom. So a person who really worked in the courtroom in Surat, his name was Manokji Kawasji Ente, an assessor in the Surat Fosdari Adalat. He was like an advocate who worked in the courtroom in Surat. He refused to take off his shoes in the court of the sessions judge. So maybe the judge belonged to the Indian, to India or to the Britishers, but that is not the question here. He simply refused to take off his shoes. And we know that the generals of those times, Dalhousie, General Amherst, these two people were very particular in Indians taking off their shoes before they come to meet them. And if they are in European dress, they need not take the shoes. So partiality was there. So here, Manokji strongly he strongly protested and he did not take off his shoes when he came for assessing a session. The judge insisted that he take off his shoes as that was the Indian way of showing respect to superiors. So, definitely, this judge, from this point, we understand that he was an Indian and he said that it is part of our custom to take off your shoes. You have to take it off because that is what we followed and we have been following over the years. But Manokji remained adamant. He was strongly adamant and he did not take off his shoes. He was barred entry into the courtroom and he sent a letter of protest to the governor of Bombay. So this was a great issue because it is like very similar to assaulting, attacking, or even slapping a person on the face when a person in front of everybody just refuses to take off the shoes. So it became a big problem and he wrote his problem to the governor of Bombay. The big debate on take off shoes. Let's see what happened. The British insisted that since Indians took off their shoes when they entered a sacred place or home, they should do so when they entered the courtroom. So, what did the Britishers say? Indians normally, when they enter a sacred place, whether it is a church or mosque or temple, you will take off your shoes. That is our custom. In the same way, when they entered the courtroom, they were supposed to take off the shoes. Just think about it. In the controversy that followed, Indians urged that taking off shoes in sacred places and at home was linked to two different questions. So, of course, the Indians did not keep quiet and they had different reasons and they gave a lot of explanations to this particular point put forward by the Britishers. Let's take a look at the first point. Number 1. There was the problem of dirt and filth. Shoes collected the dirt on the road. This dirt could not be allowed into spaces that were clean, particularly when people in Indian homes sat on the ground. So Indians said that we take off the shoes because it collects so much of dirt from the roads. So when we go to clean places like the sacred places, we were supposed to take it off. And our custom is to always sit on the ground. All the sacred places we have gatherings and people sit on the ground. That is our traditional way of paying respect. Second, leather shoes and the filth that stuck under it were seen as polluting. But public buildings like the courtroom were different from home. So they said that public buildings like courtroom was really different from the home and we cannot just take off the shoes like that. And the explanation given by the Britishers were not right in that way. So there is a reason for why they took off the shoes. It's not only just paying respect, but also because of the filth which is collected under the leather shoes and also the filth and dirt which is gathered by the shoe from the road. But it took many years before shoes were permitted into the courtroom. Still, nothing changed. Nobody allowed people to wear shoes inside the courtroom. So that was the big debate. It's called a debate because Indians had a few points to make when the Britishers said that you have to take off the shoes when you enter the courtroom. They were very particular about the courtroom. When asked to take off his shoes at the Surat Fauzdari Adalat, at Surat in 1862, Manokji told the judge that he was willing to take off even his turban, but not his shoes. So this is a different custom where we saw earlier that Indians wore turbans to actually pay respect to the higher authority people. They will not take off their turban. It is only when they go to meet higher dignitaries and officials they wear the turbans. So here, Manokji's explanation was that he would have taken off his turban but not his shoes. It is different, right? The culture is different. And what is his explanation for that? Taking off my pagri would have been a greater insult to myself than to the court. But I would have submitted to it because there is nothing of conscience or religion involved in it. So I can take off my turban. There is no religion or conscience or any traditional aspect of my bringing up involved in it. It would have been very insulting if you ask me to take off my turban. And pagri is a kind of cloth which is used to make these turban, the scarf or the special material. So he's telling that if you had asked me to take off my turban, it would have been really insulting. But still, I would have abided by the rule or by your demand and taken it off. It is okay because it is not a part of my religion or conscience. I hold no respect or disrespect embodied or disembodied in the shoes, but the putting on of our turban is the greatest of all respects that we pay. So he says that turban is something which is very important to us, not the shoes. So he's making a very important point here. He says, wearing the turban, I wore the turban when I came into the courtroom, which says or which clearly showed that I am paying a lot of respect to the court, to the judges, and to all the people assembled there. So in our custom, the turban is very important, not the shoes. We do not have our pagris on when at home. But when we go out to see respectable persons, we are bound by social etiquette to have it on. Whilst we, that is Parsis, in our social intercourse, never ever take off our shoes before any Parsi, however great. We usually wear the turban. This is something which we saw maybe 5 slides back. That wearing a turban for the Indian is to give respect to the higher officials. So here, Manokji is telling that we are not wearing pagris or this turban at home. We are normal, we just sit on the floor and we are just ourselves. But when we come to higher officials, when we come to meet judges or the courtroom, you should accept one thing, that I am paying very great respect by wearing the turban, and that is part of our custom. And it has got nothing to do with the shoes. And he says, we Parsis never take off the shoes. It is not a part of our custom to take off the shoes. We cannot take off the turban because that is not our custom to take off the turban when we meet higher officials. So shoe has got nothing to do with this religion and all these customs. So his argument was that you can ask me to take off the turban but not the shoe. And of course, it's like you are telling that it has got dirt and all these things. So taking off the shoes will not be a good thing for us. Like it is part of our custom, but still taking it off is not a good idea, was his argument for this particular reason. So let's take a recap at what the Indians actually told. The Britishers asked them to remove the shoes before entering the courtroom because Indians were used to remove shoes when they entered the sacred places. So their argument was, sacred places are very clean. Home is also kept clean and people are used to sitting on the ground. Even in sacred places like the temple, church and mosque, most of the people gather on the ground. So what does the shoe do? The shoe usually gathers maximum dirt, even the leather shoes. It is not possible or advisable to wear these leather shoes which collect so much of dirt into the sacred places or home. And that is why they don't encourage wearing it inside the sacred place or the home. But when they go to public places like stadiums, the courtrooms, or any other galleries, those public places were meant to be dirty because so many people will be gathering there. So when it is like that, you are not expected to remove or take off your shoes. So that is the reason why the Indians refused to take it off when they entered the public places. But the other place, like the sacred place and home, is supposed to be kept clean, and it is always clean. And that was their argument, which was practically right. So then we saw about Manokji's letter to the governor, where he told that I can take off my turban but not my shoes because of all these reasons. Let's take a look at the activity box. It is a practice time for you where you analyze and write the answer. It's not necessary that you have to write the exact same lines given here, but look at the question. Imagine yourself to be a Muslim pleader in the Allahabad High Court in the late 19th century. What kind of clothes would you wear? would they be very different from what you wore at home? So it is like based on the learning that you did, based on what you read in the previous slides, you are asked to analyze and give the answer. As a pleader in Allahabad High Court in the late 19th century, I would wear a professional Western dress which included black coat, under a black gown, white trousers, and white tie. Black and white is, of course, the uniform of the advocates or the pleaders, which was the normal dress of an advocate in court. So, with your practical sense and with your common sense, this is what you have to write. But trousers, because that was what was encouraged when you met the higher authorities. We saw that very clearly in the previous slides. These would be totally different from what I would wear at home. So that you can write anything. You will wear a cotton pajama or you will wear a kurta. You will wear something very comfortable at home. It is based on your custom and tradition that you can give that part of the answer. The first part has to be closer to what I have given here, where you include only black and white. And of course, you should have this white trousers, the tie, then the black coat. You cannot say that you will wear a kurta and go there. So it is a mixture of both the Western and the Indian style of dressing. So keep that in mind. And these kind of questions are very important. It is indirect, but very interesting. When you go through the points in the history book, it is important for you to analyze, assess, and then give the answer. Of course, the questions, the answers, everything is actually direct when you read it twice and thrice. This question looks indirect. Don't panic. It is based on what you read. It is like a practical question. The only difference is they have changed the name of the place to Allahabad. They have written pleader, and also, of course, the 19th century we are really familiar with. And then also they have asked what you will do if you were in that place. So just have these two parts. One is what is given in the text, what was advisable in those times, especially the 19th century. So go back, recollect. Then what you will wear at home. All right? Okay.